that it is also considering recruiting locals as security at black spot areas along the route. This is according to the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, who earlier visited victims of the attack on a Kaduna-bound train by terrorists. The minister said that the Office of the National Security Advisor will be consulted to ensure that those who will be recruited for the service are people of integrity. Right. Joining me now in the studio is Public Affairs Analyst Bola Oba. It's nice to have you join me this morning.
Pleasure's all mine always.
Great. I wonder what you make of all of the activity now to try to see how they can, monitor the Kaduna-Abuja rail tracks. This is not the first time there's an attack on that route. This is also not the second time. However, when the first and second and third happened, Nigerians were expecting that this will never happen again, and not even to the level to which it happened. But here we are. What do you make of it, though?
Oh, we get the typical runs of platitudes. We get the typical runs of, emotions. And we get back to who we are. We are naturally, and I'm talking about you and I, talking about those who are in government. The people in government are neither from Mars, nor are they from Venus. We are typically people who are given to complacency, intellectual laziness. And when we look, why would South Africa be 1/3? The population of South Africa be 1/3 of that of Nigeria, and the GDP of South Africa is competing with Nigeria's. Why would Belgium, population just about the size of Lagos, be pulling more GDP? That it tells you that an average Nigerian, an average South African, one South African produces what 3 Nigerians produce. So intellectually we are who we are. Look, why would we, for God's sake, forsake one of the busiest arterial roads in sub-Saharan Africa, Abuja-Kaduna Highway? I guess Abuja-Kaduna Highway would come after, say, Lagos-Ibadan, or maybe 1 or 2, Lagos-Ibadan, Shagamu-Benin, and that road happens to be in one of the 5 busiest roads, not only in Nigeria, but on the continent of sub-Saharan Africa, and yet we deliberately, without saying it, forsook it, gave it up, ceded it to terroristic elements. And all of us, the last time I took Abuja-Kaduna train, about 3 years ago, or 3, just before COVID, I looked it up and I was convinced that all of us were sitting dogs for criminal elements just at the stamp of the finger. And because you get there as early as 5:30 a.m. because you want to catch the train, and by 6:30 a.m., the caliber of Nigerians you see sitting in the lobby, you just know that if you want to make a statement in criminological order, you just have to target that train. So I'm here now thinking, look, this government, and let any other government come, until we get people who can lift the game intellectually higher more. This government has done what the greats of Nigerian politics could not do. Sardauna, Awolowo, Nnamdi Azikiwe. Ever since the colonialists finished the line from Lagos to the hinterland of Nigeria in 1909, no other government has done this much. But yet this government will live in infamy and shame because of that element. Look at what the minister was saying yesterday. They could do the line, deliver the infrastructure. Jonathan started it. Let's be fair. This is up to 95%, but he didn't commission it. They commissioned it, and somebody forgot to do what you do in most other jurisdictions. Before incidents of criminality, there were incidents of cattle and train colliding. simple highway.
We even had issues of vandalism and the vandalization of the rail tracks at the time too.
Look, the Lagos Ibadan, somebody on social media yesterday, somebody was broadcasting pictures of people pilfering the iron hooks on the train, on the rail line. Lagos Ibadan Expresso. Lagos Ibadan.
But what do people do with those things? I just wonder. Oh, okay.
All those pankalemesi spoons that people eat with because you are upper class now, you don't hit.
No, I am just Nigerian.
When you go to all those mama puts by under Akumbo Bridge that you've just shown now, as you are buying this thing, all those spoons and this thing are used, all aluminium railings and this. But you know what? A society, there's a Yoruba proverb that says, when you have refused to develop your people, when you have refused to handhold them, and we've been saying this for long. Let me give you a typical example. It is almost certain 95% that Macron will win in France and defy the presidential circumstances of the last 25 years of the last candidate, of the last incumbent. Because of what? Because primarily what is working for him now was that in less than 5 years, he targeted a human capital development skills empowerment program at French youths. Majority of them got jobs, and for the first time in about 25 years, a higher percentage of youths in France have gotten employed, and the guy is riding a wave. Look, if you don't skill empower and enterprise empower your people, they will take to subsistence. And you know what other Yoruba proverbs say here? In fact, it means that a lazy person ends up doing not quite only more, but does the worst of people in order to survive.
Yeah. Survival.
And I'm not justifying criminality.
No, of course not. Yeah.
Even when your criminal justice system is not working, and people know that, you know what, I just go take it. If somebody catches me at the end of the day, if he takes me to the station, we are going to negotiate, and I will tell him, don't worry. He probably will take it from me and resell to people who will buy from me anyway. We live in a society. Life is now a lottery in Nigeria. Let's be very honest with ourselves. And it's not only about our leaders. My podcast yesterday, I do a daily podcast. My podcast yesterday, and I was saying, it's a problem of you and I. The quality of how we think. The zeitgeist of the moment is, what's in it for me now? When you're talking to people in the business environment, all they want to see is what's in it for me now. Even when, have you ever played the game of dot? Consummate winners would always give you the opportunity to win. And they create spaces to. But you see, the mentality of the average Nigerian, now forget about the title before his name, professor, doctor, whatever, is what's in it for me now. And when people live with that mentality, you are barely better than lower animals.
Well, what do you make of the president came out to give marching orders to the service chiefs to do everything within their powers to arrest the terrorists that perpetrated this, rescue those who are missing, and ensure that they face justice. Those who perpetrated this face justice. This is not the first time the president is saying that.
I know you know the meaning of the word upteenth, but you may want to help me because the people at home will trust you more than this mission boy who barely accidentally knows how to speak English.
You are the global citizen.
Is that not? Was it not saying that for the upteenth time? And when we started this session, did I not use the word platitude? These are platitudes. And you see, an average Nigerian is no longer even bothered about what our president says. the presidential, it should be one of the most powerful, one of the most potent, moral suasion pulpits on the face of this space. You understand? But you know what? I don't see any pronouncement that is as hollow now as the one made by President Muhammadu Buhari, especially on security. It's so vacuous, so loafy, so hollow that President. Even I wonder why people before him don't even chuckle sometimes when he speaks, because you know that when he speaks, 9 times out of 10, what is the subject he's speaking on is practically, and it's sad. It's sad because I have never seen a Nigerian politician squandered much goodwill like this president. Some of us, I was telling somebody a couple of days ago at an event, some of us even refused good offers of money in 2014, 2015 to say it was going to be Buhari. But I knew 2 weeks into his swearing, after he was sworn in, I knew 2 weeks this man wasn't going to go anywhere. If you could not constitute your cabinet in 2 weeks, in a country of almost 200 million people, 2 weeks, and people were saying, Agbala, you are too impatient, you are too this thing, give him some time, body language is working, NEPA is not taking light. Look at the mentality. And people were even remonstrating with, lambasting us that we were impatient. How could a man assume the leadership of a country, almost 200 million then, and he could not constitute his cabinet in 2 weeks? And people did not see that was the most ominous omen that this man was not going to go nowhere fast. And look at even what they have achieved. For a man with a degree, a little more degree of razzmatazz, this government has put in place the highest welfare package in the political history of Nigeria. What has it become now? In fact, I refused, as an entrepreneur, I refused to take the new set of Empower people. You know what?
Why is that? Because
the mentality now amongst those kids is not to self-empower themselves, it's about getting the stipend. It's sad. Sad. You look at an average graduate, unemployed and unemployable, and there is a government program that should ordinarily, I just gave you the example of France. I lived in Germany before I lived in United Kingdom, and I know that 70% of secondary school leavers in Germany don't go to university. They go to a training or
vocational
skills
entrepreneurship
program. 70% of kids, and in UK, God gave some favor. Some of us, when I was a journalist in the UK, I was going into Whitehall to interview secretaries of state. At some point, the party I belonged to begged me, the ruling party begged me to contest, so I should know how the UK works. In the UK, 70% of kids go to university, but anytime there is unemployment, recession in, was it 98 to 2005, there is a higher degree of unemployment of especially youths in the UK than youths in Germany. This guy came into office in France and just felt he should replicate the German experiment, and he emphasized, he took the youth training program in France from around 250,000 to about 1-point-something million, and look at what it has transformed the youth employment scale to in France. So I'm sitting here as an entrepreneur, and the Nigerian youth is thinking, they will go and register online, but any serious-minded, when this policy was started, fantastic idea. Some of us, it was not about the money. It was about getting these youths. Because when you kickstart an ecosystem where people are functional and useful to themselves, those of us who already have the advantage of presence in the market will leverage. It's like we say about the tide. The tide takes
you up.
every craft on the body of water. But you know what? Even that program, one of the most elaborate social welfare programs on the continent of Africa, you look at the market money. They should ordinarily have looked for cooperatives and inject funds into those cooperatives and tell them this is not a grant. And yet, because those people they came together and because of entrepreneurial purpose before, and you know what, they will use that money and the fund. They start going to markets and giving 10,000. How many of those 10,000 naira have they gotten back? And they were telling, we knew then that it was just about.
It's all right. Just in a minute, as we go back to our discussion, the point there is the government is looking at the possibility of, on the corridor of the rail tracks, recruit people across those who live within those areas as security agents to keep an eye on on the tracks, and also report to government just in case there is anything that is going on. And then also the issue of the use of drones and helicopters to monitor the corridor and all of that. One would say, well, this should have been happening even long ago.
I tell people who are in government, I was fortunate to be in front of a gentleman governor about 4 or 5 days ago, and I said it clear and clean. And I use this opportunity to reiterate it. When you are fixated about so-called infrastructure development, and you refuse to democratize the opportunity of either participation in providing that infrastructure development or infrastructure asset, or the management of that infrastructure asset, if you don't democratize it to the people who own the territory where that infrastructure asset will pass through, you have just commissioned a project that will ultimately embarrass you. You know why? Look, we know the history of trains in the last 250 years. We know that whichever direction it goes, it brings development. Yeah. You know why the Chinese have deliberately chosen to put the two major train stations in any city they build a train to? You know why they put it at the two ends of the city? Because one of the ways through which they galvanized development in the last 40 years in China was any city they take a train to, they put one major station at the one end. So development comes from the ends to the center.
Okay, all right. Unfortunately, we don't have all the time anymore, but we thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity once again. Always a pleasure to be on your side.
Thank you.